What if you could take your leadership to the next level, starting today? Whether you're looking for the next big idea or just a spark of inspiration, the Paper Napkin Wisdom newsletter is for you. Either way, you'll want to visit papernapkinwisdom.com and sign up now.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom. Today, this just isn't any episode. This one is particularly exciting for me. You know how there are people who you always wanted to sit down and speak with? Someone whose story has quietly influenced you? Well, for me, Ted Nolan is one of those people. And today, you get to join me in that conversation. Ted is a former NHL hockey coach, Jack Adams Award winner for Coach of the Year, and a proud member of the Ojibwe Nation. But if you think this is just another sports story, you may want to lean in a little closer. Because what you're about to hear has the power to shift how you lead, how you show up for others, and how you see what's already within you. Imagine what might happen if you stopped waiting for perfect conditions and instead made the most of everything already in your hands. That's exactly what Ted did and continues to do. In this episode, you'll hear how he navigated challenges that would have stopped most people, and how even a napkin sketch helped shape his approach to leadership, and why his greatest victories were never on the scoreboard. You may begin to realize that your own strength, your own version of what you got, is more than enough. So as you listen, ask yourself, what have I been overlooking that could actually help me win? And when the answer hits you, write it down, maybe even on a napkin, and share it with us using the hashtag #PaperNapkinWisdom. Now let's dive in. Ted Nolan, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. And when I heard about the paper napkin, it kind of fit right up my alley. So thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, you said coming into this that you pretty much took millions of notes on paper napkins all the way through your life and career.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about paper napkins because when I started coaching, I didn't do the traditional route of coaching. I didn't go to the hockey clinics. I didn't start off at Pee Wee and Bantam, and I just got thrown right into the fire. Phil Esposito asked me one day if I'd be interested in being a part-time assistant coach with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds of the Ontario Hockey League. And we'll talk about this later, but within a month, they fired the head coach and said, "Hey, Ted, can you take over?" So it kind of boomed from there, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I ran into a player that I much respected, and his name was Marcel Peronovo. And I just kind of ran into him one day. And, everybody talks about systems and methods of playing. And so I asked him, so what was the system back in the day? Did you guys have systems like we do nowadays? And now I guess the new coaches are asking us if we had systems. But anyway, I asked him, and he grabbed a paper napkin and he drew a little rink. And one end of the rink, he drew a little house in front of the net. And the opposite goal, he drew another little house. And he said, then he connected the two with the two lines. And he said, in their end, we try to get the puck in the house. And at our end, we keep the puck out of the house. And at center ice, we just keep the puck to the outside. And I'm going, geez, so simple, yet effective. So I kind of copied that for my whole career.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Well, you didn't draw any rinks on the paper napkin that you shared with me today, but I'm really curious about it. And so you wrote, "Learn to win with what you got," and there's a heart on it. Why did you share that with me?
Because my whole life, growing up where I grew up, we didn't grow up with the best of means. My first pair of skates were size 6 or 7. My feet were only size 3 or 4. The helmets didn't really fit properly. They just kind of rattle all over your head. We had those old mouth guards. I didn't play AAA hockey and AA at the beginning. I didn't. I played house league hockey, and when I went to the rink, my stick was always too short. Because we couldn't afford a new hockey stick, so I just kind of went and and learn to work with what I had. And my father said, just because we're poor, you don't have to act poor. You work with what you have. So I was very thankful for the things I had my whole life, and I just learned how to work with them. And it came into two life lessons, because when I started coaching seriously, when I started coaching the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, when I first started, typical of anybody would say, geez, I wish I had a really good goaltender. I wish I had big defense. I wish I had a better. But I was the wrong one. I had everything that I needed, and I just had to work with what I had. And we worked with what we had, and then all of a sudden we went to 3 national championships. And so I just really, I'm thankful every day that I get to work. I get to come home, open up my fridge, and there's food inside. So you just got to learn to work with what you have and be thankful.
That's amazing. And I know, so I reached out because I read your book, and sometimes people say this, the endorsements of the books are in the front of the book, right? People writing good things about it, say it will make you laugh, it'll make you cry. And it is an emotional book to read, because this lesson, learning to win with what you got, was really everywhere through it. And then it was something that your father said, but it was also something that came to you in the hockey world, right? You got a great message from Fred Shiro that was similar to this too. It was like a constant reminder. Even though it was so important to you early in your life, learning to win with what you got, and you talked about your hockey origin story, did you have to remind yourself of it often through those challenges, or was it something that you just always had?
You know what? I was very blessed in the way that I got raised, and I keep telling this to a lot of people. I wouldn't change a thing in the world, even though it was tough at times. You woke up, there was not too much food, and the wood stove went out, and you were cold, and you had the same clothes, and you didn't quite fit in at school and everything. But at home, geez, we had more care and more love than anybody could ask for. So I never really sat down and said, I wish I would have had something else, because I was very thankful for what I had. And I try to pass that on to my kids, because my parents certainly passed it on to me. And it's just one of those legacies that I really want to continue. It's not the material things in life. I mean, although it's nice to have a car, to be able to drive to the grocery store. And it's nice to be able to turn the lights on and pay for your electricity bill. But just some simplicity of life is the most important thing. So sometimes we try to think so much where we're going, we forget what we're doing while we're getting there. So I just really, I wouldn't have changed my upbringing for all the money in the world, because I was very thankful. I was very appreciative, and sometimes you if I could change it all and say wipe off what I had, go back to where I was, I would probably do that.
It's amazing. So this idea of learning to win with what you got, and I mean, I can just sort of see the gratitude also for life's lessons. I mean, for where you came from, you appreciate it all. You appreciate the people, you appreciate everything. Did you have a process to remind yourself of that in the midst of challenges? Because I know your story was hard, right? There was a lot of discrimination early on against Indigenous communities, and you faced that. You had to fight through that. I'm sure it was difficult at times to remember to be grateful, or remember to learn to win with what you got. Did you find that challenging, or did you just lean on family? How did you do that?
Yeah, I think I was so inbred on how I was raised. I grew up on we have a powwow trail, in our communities. We have a lot of powwows, and my mom introduced me to the traditional side of my life, and she took me to powwows right across North America, into the United States, up to Alberta. We went to ceremonies all over the place, and I was really enriched by what we do and how we did it. And that was the life that I was so proud of what we've done. Then I got involved with a little bit with understanding the AIM movement at the time, the American Indian movement, and how they're fighting for our rights. And then I started hearing stories about the residential schools and what transpired there, and the horrific stories that were told to us, and the fear of letting our I could see the fear why they didn't want us to go out, because the things that could happen. So when I went to Kenora, Ontario, for the first time in my life, leaving home on my own and facing it right on to everybody said. I was picked on at the hockey rink. I had a lot of fights first a little bit, and I went to school and I had some fights there, and it was all based on my the way I looked. And I went downtown one time, and I was walking by this hotel which was on the water, and some guy thought I was looking at his girlfriend or whatever, so he got mad. And he was a grown man, and he grabbed me and roughed me up, and he was going to throw me over that cliff. And it was 20, 30 feet down. I mean, I don't think I would have got up from that. But thank God there were some people around. So I was well equipped with those type of stories before I went. So I kind of learned how to block it out a little bit and still be proud of who I was, and don't let them chase. Because my two brothers came to town, and because I wrote letters, we didn't have a phone. So I wrote letters stating some of the stuff that was going on. I didn't want to get too much in detail because my father just passed away that year that I left. So I didn't want to add more trauma onto the family, worrying about me, and they were thinking I was having this great old time playing hockey. So I wrote some, but they must have read through it, and they came to town to bring me home, and I still remember it. And I told my younger brother Steve, I said, Steve, if I leave now, the next tough situation in my life, I'll probably quit that too. And then I kind of had a flashback to all the American Indian movement guys and what they're doing and how they're fighting for us, and all our elders, what they went through with the residential schools. They were fighting for us. So I just really wanted to keep the fight going and pay homage to them with my fight. And then when I played my first game in the National Hockey League, I dropped tobacco in their honor. So I don't think I would have made it if I was born anywhere else.
Amazing. I love the use of the word learn. And if you listen, in listening to your story and the way you tell it, you knew you had the ingredients, like you knew who you were despite the challenges, but you had to learn how to use who you were and your your indigenous heritage, all of the learnings on the powwow circuit. You had to learn how to use that to win, right? It wasn't a matter of adding things. It wasn't like I needed to find the great goaltender. I wish I was taller. I wish I was stronger. I wish I were this. I wish I were that. But it was still just learning how to put the pieces that you have together to win, right? I mean, that's the experimentation process that you're talking about.
Exactly. I mean, because I heard so many people my whole life kind of, I didn't make it because I couldn't go to school because. There's always that because. And as I was growing, I always wondered why, and some people would try, and all of a sudden they just couldn't handle it mentally or physically, and I'm not here to blame anyone. I learned from their experiences and saying why. So I just went and I said, no matter what happens, I'm going to fight. And I got to learn to work with what I have in order to, when I got to Kenora, I didn't have a new pair of skates. They bought me one. And then I never practiced more than once a week because all my recreational league was once a week practices. We had an outdoor rink, and I didn't have the foggiest idea what conditioning was. I didn't know you had to be a conditioned athlete to play major junior hockey in Canada. I just played because I loved to play. And then you learn as you go and you observe. I've always observed people. So I went to Kenora. I'm going, man, these guys are pretty fit. Then they talked about quick feet. Then they talked about power and explosiveness. And they talked about having that man strength. So I went home and I made up my own training facility. We have hills. We have ground and we could run. So I started running and then my home crowd, they asked me one day, what are you running for? I said, well, I'm going to be a better athlete. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to get a chance anyways. So that when you start off in that behavior thought, you're not going to make it. And I just refused to not believe. And when I went to Kenora, it really switched my mind. I used to love to play. I just love to play. I just like the intricacies of the game, the passing, the getting in the open, the body contact, where you take away the hands versus taking away the power, how to get the one from A to B quicker than the opposition, what you're going to do when you get the puck versus what you're going to do when you don't have the puck. So I thought of all that stuff, and I just refused to believe that I couldn't, and they were not going to send me home. So I just worked and worked and worked, and eventually got better. So when I started running on the hills in Garden River, and I started chopping down trees because that was for my upper body power. I ran on railroad tracks because the tiles going back and forth were sometimes 6 inches apart. So you have to have quick feet. If you don't have quick feet, you're going to fall. And then I walked back on the rail part for balance. And so I just really learned to work with what I had and not complain. And some people have the luxury of doing things, but I never said, geez, I wish I had that after that point.
Amazing. And it's amazing for if you're just listening to this, got to see Ted light up when he talks about running on the railway tracks. You loved it. It really feels like you loved the idea of learning how to use or how to get better at something. And that power of observation really obviously played out very well for you because, you came from not having this organized hockey, minor hockey upbringing, right? You didn't play what we would call competitive hockey at that time, but you still ascended. You went all the way to the pros, and then obviously you got involved in coaching. It was always through observation, right? Like you always learn through observation. Do you think that started in the powwow circuit, watching and listening to the stories and observing the stories and the heritage? Is that some of the learning to learn is, I think, a really important thing. Is that where you maybe first got experience with that?
That's a great observation right there. I think in life we learn and what we see. And excuse me. And growing up in the powwow circuit and seeing the ceremonies, I had a trap line when I was a little boy. We used to go hunting and fishing all the time. And when I started coaching, as I mentioned, I never went to hockey clinics or coaching certification programs and learn how to coach. And I'm not too sure how you really learn how to coach. But my coaching philosophy has always been, I coach the spirit of the athlete. Because everybody has talent. Some are good, some are okay, some are really good. But that doesn't define the athlete. What defines the athlete is the spirit within them. And if you take time to find out who they are, I tell you, you're going to get a lot more mileage out of them than you normally would. So I really observed, and like the way that when I went hunting, we asked some guys from the city to come hunting with us one time. And they came in, they put their deodorant on and soap and shampoo, and you could smell them a mile away. And the animals have a great sense of smell. They're going to smell you 2 miles away before we even get there. So we learned how to make a big smudge fire and jump in the middle and smoke ourselves. So we become part of it. And then you watch the way the geese fly. I mean, the head goose doesn't lead the way the whole way. He gets tired, as leaders do. Then you have to have somebody else come in and take the lead. So I just took a lot of the way I got raised into coaching. And then when I started coaching, I had to learn a little bit because I was god awful. I wasn't a very, very good coach at all. But one of the books I bought was Sacred Hoops by Phil Jackson. And then he studied Buddhism, he studied Native spirituality, and he took some of those concepts and he put them in with his team. And I could just picture Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan sitting around in a circle inside their locker room in order to get ready for the competition. And I'm going, geez, if he could do it with those guys, I could certainly do it with a whole bunch of teenagers. So I started implementing a little bit of how I got raised and working with what I have. And don't complain if we're down 2-0 going in the third period. It's not the end of the world. There's ways to come back if you're willing to sacrifice. And I always felt winners always did something different than people that don't. Winners are willing to sacrifice certain things in order to accomplish. So winning is hard. And so I just really try to get the players that I was involved with doing simple things that are more consistent. If you do things more consistently right than the opposition, there's chances of winning is pretty good.
When you were able to start bringing your heritage, your culture, your learnings to your coaching, what opened up for you? Because that's really bringing all of what you have to coaching, right? And I feel like your ability to connect with, and sometimes challenge players, but all players by bringing all of who you have or who you are, really sort of morphed your coaching career, right? Like you talked about smudging even with athletes, with the players in the rink.
Yeah, it just learned from a real young age, and I was very proud of and listening to the elders in our communities and throughout Turtle Island, and listen to the stories of what they went through and how the power of prayer and smudging and ceremonies and being proud of who we are as a people, not any more special than the next person, but just being proud. And I just really wanted to take that. Although I was a coach, but I was a First Nation coach, and I wanted to implement some of the things. And like I said, when I played, I always felt there was a hierarchy in the business. I felt if you're a superstar, boy, oh boy, you get to make lots of turnovers and you get to make a lot of mistakes because the reward is going to be better because they're going to score you 50 goals. But if you're in the third line, fourth line, you make a turnover, you make a mistake, you're going to see your butt on that bench, and you might not even play the rest of the game. And even worse, you might get sent down to the minors. And I always felt, why such a drastic input? You're all part of a team. Watching the football game last night with Kansas City Chiefs, and they asked the quarterback, "What makes you guys?" He said, "We're a team. We're a team, and nobody more special." And I took that philosophy because I'm from a family of 12. There's 12 of us, and we're all young. We have our own little torques, and I always felt that I was the gifted one. I always felt I was the smartest one. I was the lucky one. I was the most loved. And then I overheard my sister talking about with her friends, and she was saying the same thing I felt. Then I heard my brother say it to his friends, and there's 12 of us. We felt the same. And I'm going, why can't you take the same approach and put it into hockey? I'm not saying a third line, fourth line guy is going to play as much as a first line guy, but he should feel just as important. So I really clamped into the everybody's important and everybody deserves respect. Whether you get 5 minutes of ice time or you get 55, doesn't matter. So I just put that philosophy, and all the players just really. And then when we got big leads, you don't have to win by 10 goals, but it looks good on stats because I got 60 goals. But how about the poor guy on the fourth line who has 2 goals? Maybe his 4 and 5 and 6 and even 10 goals would make a big difference in his life. So I just really kind of clamped it all together because that's the way I was raised, and the players seem to like it.
I think it's amazing too that when you talk about that, what do you think the impact is when a coach or a leader appreciates the team evenly? Doesn't that change how they look at each other a little bit too? Doesn't it bring the team together when the coach and the leader binds the team as equals the way you did?
No question at all. Because when I first got the job with the Buffalo Sabres, I flew back home and I was so excited, and I didn't get back until 12 o'clock flight, and yet my family was waiting for me. And we went to our house. We had a fire. And we sat around. We talked about how the interview go and how the excitement. They just wanted to hear about the excitement of the day. And my younger brother goes, Ted, what are you going to tell Pat LaFontaine when you coach him? I mean, he's a superstar. How are you going to make him better? And what are you going to say to him? And that was the first time I was stumped in my entire life. I'm going, geez, I don't know what I'm going to tell him. I mean, he knows everything there is. He probably knows more than I do. And I said, I really don't know. And then one of the first guys I met, because he was team captain, was Pat LaFontaine. And we started talking about life, and we started talking about things. And I called up my brother. I said, I got nothing to worry about what I'm going to say to Pat LaFontaine, because he's a real good man. And he's going to understand the concept of all that stuff. So it just kind of took off from there. Leadership on your whatever team that you have or whatever organization that you have is really important. You can't have one pretending he's or she is above everybody else, because we're all on the same boat, going in the same direction, and we need one another.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things. So you talked about leadership, understanding that they're all part of it, but you did that for the weaker players, for when Ted, you're talking about the fourth line players. These are the players that in a 60-minute game may play 5 to 10 minutes of the time. They're not the stars. They don't get equal playing time as the stars, of course. They're journey players. They're role players as in different sports, and different organizations have role players too. But you paid them no less attention than you paid the stars, right? Everybody's got to learn together. Everybody's got to get a second chance after they make a mistake. Everybody's got to have the chance to learn with what they've got, right? Learn to win. Learn to win with what they've got, right?
Yeah, and then you kind of go, and I always when I was playing, the coach never was worried whether I went to school or not. He never asked me once. Hey, and I didn't go to school. The one year when I was in Kenora, I was in grade 10. I failed the whole year. I think they gave me a phys ed credit, which, well, I don't know why they give it to me, because I never went to school, and they didn't seem to care. And when and hockey is the same thing. So when I became a coach, and part of my family upbringing, I really wanted to make sure that the players understood that I understood who they are. When we went to some town where a player was close by, his whole family's going to come and watch, and they're going to bring, like I did, we had to bring 2 busloads in to come. And so you kind of squeeze a little bit more, give him a little bit more ice time. Give him a little bit more show, so his family's going to be. Don't sit him on the bench and let the people walk away disappointed, or because I just really believe in when we got to a point where we're winning the game, say 5-1, 6-1 going into third period, why do the Stars have to play that much more? So I played the third and fourth line a little bit more than normal. I put them on a power play, I put them in penalty killing because everybody thinks I'm trying to be an equal. No, it's not about being equal. It's about being prepared. Because if you go into the playoffs and all of a sudden one of your star players gets hurt, and if your players below them are not used to those type of situations and never played those situations, then you ask them to do something that they're ill prepared to do. So you just kind of prepare your whole team that so anything happens, the whole team is ready.
Put a heart in the corner of your napkin, and I don't think in talking to you that's a mistake. That's an accident. Like, I get the sense that, first of all, you appreciate that coaching is teaching. Coaching is a teaching job. Am I wrong when I make that observation?
No, you're 1,000% right. It's about life. I mean, when I have junior players that are 17, 18, 19 years old, and all their dreams and ambitions and goals in life is to play. They want to play in the National Hockey League, but in reality, a very, very small percentage are going to. But you don't want to take anybody's dreams and ambitions away from them. But also, you got to prepare them that if things don't work out, and the best way to prepare them is through education, to make sure they go to school. And if they don't go to school, they don't play. And whether you're a star player or not, the rules are the same as far as schooling is concerned, because that has nothing to do with playing. And when I became the coach of the Sioux Greyhounds, I asked my general manager if I could put in a rule, because no one seemed to care whether I went to school or not. And I had to struggle. I finally graduated grade 12 when I was 20 years old. And I didn't want that for at least say if they graduate during our program, then they can go on to university and go on with their life. So I asked them if I could put a rule in with hockey. And I got all the guys to buy in. I said, boys, what do you think if we put in this rule that if Tommy or Jimmy misses school for no reason, he just didn't want to go, that we have a wake up call, and we'll practice at 5 a.m. next morning, no matter when, because Tommy and Jimmy didn't want to go to school. What do you think? It's part of a group. So they all clapped and said, "Oh, wonderful idea." So anyways, we went through this season. Sure enough, somebody missed school for no reason. If they were sick, it's a reason, but they had no reason to miss. So we woke up at 5 a.m. and we practiced, and it was kind of cute. The guys were kind of having fun with it a little bit. Then somebody else missed again, but probably 2 weeks later. Then it wasn't so much fun anymore, because I skated them pretty hard. The third time, the person who missed school, the boys wanted to get them real bad. So we just kind of separated, and they started understanding the concept of someone making a mistake within our family. And lo and behold, I tell you, the last 3 years I was in the Sioux, we had 0 missed. Nobody missed school. And everybody graduated, and I'm very proud of all the things I've done. A lot of players graduated. They went off. Some are policemen, some are accountants, some are chiropractors, and so forth. And now they're good abiding citizens for our country.
That's amazing. So you talk about teaching, but most of all, you talk about caring. Like, there's a lot of love. Like, can you truly coach somebody or teach somebody, do you think, if you don't care about them?
I personally don't, and I think if you look at championship organizations, and you hear that word all the time, we just felt like a family. But then you look at people who are trying to get there. They say the same words, but they're not following through with the real concept of how to do it. So I just really, with my upbringing, I just knew the way I was treated. And when I played with the Sioux Greyhounds, and they left me behind twice. Like, how do you leave a player behind who's 17 years old, 18 years old, and you have to fend and how to get to the rink? And they dropped me off. We stopped one time to get some snacks, and I was the last person in line, me and another player, and the bus took off and left us there. How do you do that to someone? And the player that I was with, he hitchhiked back home. He said, "Screw those guys." Then I jumped on the other side of the road and I thumbed the way to the game. And, and a truck driver pulled over, picked me up, and he drove me right to the arena. And I got to the arena quicker than the bus did. But how do you do that? So I just took all those feelings that I had as a player. Geez, I wish I would have enjoyed my time much more. And it's such an easy thing to do, is just appreciate the person that you have. And I'm not saying they're going to score you 20 more goals. It's just, but they're gonna compete a little bit harder for you.
So what about the person? And I'm sure you've had the instance where you've had a player come onto your team. You've got a family. That's your approach. For whatever reason, they're hurting. They're not themselves. They don't know how to be a part of a family, and maybe they're destructive in that environment. How do you help that person?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit harder, and you have to have patience. I mean, everybody's not the same. And I had a player in junior hockey and turn around, and we're talking about a turn. Something happened in a hockey game, so I started giving it to the line, and he turned around and he said, "F you, you stinking wahoo." I mean, I'm the head coach. And I'm sitting down, and a young 18, 19-year-old kid turns around and tells me to F you and you stinking wahoo and get a welfare check, go home. And, those type of things. And I'm sitting right there, and I got the whole team in front of me. And I'm going, how do you react? And so I didn't say anything to him at that particular time. We finished off the game. And the next morning, we had a discussion. And I said, you can't say those type of things. I mean, if you go to work and you say something about your boss because he's of different color than you are, guess what? You're going to get your ass fired. You go to school and you say something there, guess what? They're going to kick you out. We're playing a hockey game, and hopefully you learn a lesson. You just can't do it. I don't appreciate what you said, and I talked to the team about what he said, and we had no more incidences. And then I'm coaching the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and all the fans started doing the tomahawk chop behind the bench, and they started doing the war cry. And I tell you, that was one of the most humiliating situations I ever had in my entire life. But then I look at it, and I always kind of grab your soul from your body and see, if you're sitting up here watching this, what would you do in that situation? And I'm going, the easiest thing for me to do was respond and grab a stick and start slashing. But then I had a whole bunch of people, a bunch of players looking to me as their leader. And how do you react? And so I just kind of blocked it out, and we continued. And they can make their own assumptions of what they would have done in that situation. But it's I think we're all life lessons as we go. And if you break it down, hockey and baseball or football, it really is just a sport. Unfortunately, when you get pro, there's a lot of money attached to it, and people do crazy things in order to try to win. So, but if you just really keep the concept of getting good athletes and doing the right thing more often than the opposition, guess what? Your chances of winning. We went to 3 straight Memorial Cups. And we didn't go to Memorial Cups by accident. We worked on it every time. And I still remember I called timeout at the Memorial Cup final. We were winning 2-1 against Peterborough for the Memorial Cup. And I called timeout. They had an extra attacker. They were putting pressure on us. And I called timeout. And I brought all the players to the bench. I said, look at the crowd. Look how excited they are. Because in 1 minute and 30 seconds, we're going to become national champions. I didn't talk to them about protecting the lead, and their hands get really tight, and they started thinking about what they had to do, because we did it 101 times already. We did that already. The only thing we had to do it for another minute 30, and sure enough, we're very fortunate to win the cup.
To me, the presence of mind, this idea of taking your soul's view of the situation, gives you this ability to first of all, maybe assess the situation from a different perspective, but also bring all of who you are to that moment and appreciate that moment. Like that, just giving
your players the gift to recognize how special that moment was with a minute and a half left in the game, that's powerful. That's a real gift. Have you been able to use that in other parts of your life? I mean, look, coaching, you've also seen your two sons play in the NHL, and they've become players. And your youngest, Jordan, won Stanley Cups. Was that part of being a father? Like, were you able to apply that there in teaching them? Now, I know also you play a great role as a mentor to Indigenous communities across North America, speaking frequently. Is that something that you're able to continue to use in different ways?
Yeah, because I've maybe because I had such a different upbringing, and uh, I appreciate the food more so than anything. We do a lot of work with the food banks and donations and what have you. Uh, and I just grew up with not so many means. I didn't have a car to get to the practice. I didn't have the proper equipment to play, and the easiest thing for me to do was complain with the things I haven't got. I mean, it's unfortunate I didn't have them, but I was lucky enough that I was able to hitchhike once in a while and hitchhike to the game and get to the game and when if I hitchhiked got to a game and someone drove me the day before because I couldn't get to practice. And we only had one. I couldn't get to practice because we didn't have a car. And I get to the game and the coach sat me out because I missed practice. And I still remember my dad. We walked. He was fuming. And so anyways, he grabbed me. He said, "That's it. You're not playing there no more." And I walked out and I said, I want to play. And he said, "No, you're not playing there anymore." And I just, at that point, it just kind of dawned on me that if somebody misses something, that something happened in their life that maybe stop them from. So we're too quick to judge. We blame someone for a turnover. We blame someone for a mistake, but maybe the night before he had some bad news in his family. But if you don't know that, you're going to assume. So I tried to get the assuming out of me and finding out. So I met with our players quite a bit and talked to them about life because you look at hockey or any sport. Before you blink an eyeball, it's over. So you might as well enjoy what you're doing and hopefully save enough money to help you with your next career because we all have to have one, and not to get into the unrealistic part that the rest of your life is going to be like that because it's not. The autographs are going to stop. People are going to stop asking you for that. They're going to stop asking you to come to events, and things are going to stop. And what are you going to do? And who are you? So those things I always, because I got hurt back injury and I went back home and I had no education outside of high school. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no trade. So I went back to school. And nobody from the hockey organizations called me and said, "Hey, Ted, we got a wonderful opportunity." And even right now, there's nothing there. So I'm not asking for it, but you have to make your own way.
Amazing. And you're doing amazing work with Three Nolans, your foundation, to pay that forward to other communities, right?
No question. I mean, if there's anything I'm proud of more so than anything, is the work that we've been able to do with my two boys and Brandon, my oldest one. He used to come to hockey schools with me when I had him in First Nation communities, and then when I had my family, I kind of stopped doing as much as I did because I wanted to be a dad more so than traveling in the wintertime and traveling in the summertime. So we stopped them. And then he came home one day and he said, "Dad, what do you think about starting up the hockey schools again?" And then this time we'll use all three of us. Jordan, he won, was part of 3 Stanley Cup teams. Myself and yourself, we all played. We talked to the kids about schooling and substance abuses and what have you. So we've been doing it now for five, 10 years or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how long we've been doing it, but it's been just wonderful. We've been going to events. We bring in, sometimes we're lucky enough to get sponsors. We bring in computers, but the whole trick of the hockey school is not, it's the same thing as coaching junior. It's everybody's not going to play pro, and everybody's not going to leave the community to play sports, but they can certainly leave for education. So we talk about the importance of schooling and carpentry and woodworking and mechanics and police officers and doctors and what have you. So we've been doing that for a long time, combined with I forgot to mention, but my mother was killed by a drunk driver when I was only 21 years of age, and it took me a long, long time to even talk about it, even think about it, or discuss it. And in '96, I think '97, after I was going through some very, very hard times, after I got let go by the Buffalo Sabres, I started talking to my wife and going through some therapy and what have you. And so anyways, we came up with the concept, said let's start a foundation, and we could raise money for First Nation women across the country. And we started off in Ontario, then we branched off, and I'm proud to say we raised close to $2 to $3 million for First Nation Women's Education Fund. So anyways, long story short, through this hockey stuff, it's not so much the hockey. It's the dream of whatever you want to do in life. You can, but you got to make sure you do the right things. You can't go there and work for 2 months and it gets tough and say, it's not for me. You got to fight through those muddy waters a little bit and give yourself a little time. And like when I was in Kenora, boy, oh boy, I'd never wanted to stay there. I didn't like it. I despised it. But if I wouldn't have stayed, we certainly wouldn't be having this talk, and I certainly wouldn't be able to do the things I did in life if I quit.
I think that idea of learning to win with what you got, the emphasis on learning is so important, and it's such a big part of your story. It's such a gift to have sat down with you here today, Ted. I'm so grateful that you shared this story with me. At the end of every Paper Napkin Wisdom episode this season, we've been doing a shout out based on this idea of what you appreciate and the world appreciates and value. So with that in mind, is there someone you'd like to shout out, Ted?
Oh man, I got a whole bunch of people, but probably the biggest thing, and like I said, when you read the book, you'll understand a little bit more. When I went away to Kenora, it was such a traumatic experience for me. I didn't want to leave again. Sioux Greyhounds were right there. Then all of a sudden, I didn't know about the NHL draft. They drafted me and put me in training camp, asked me to go to Kansas City, Missouri, which was a long, long ways from home. And I went and I caught the bus. And I went back home. I said, I'm going to become a police officer. I don't want to be away from home. And I was dating a young girl at the time. She was only 17. And we started talking. I said, will you come with me if I go back? And then she came. She was 17 years old, and I was 19, 20, just turning 20. And we lived together for a little. Then we got married. We've been married now for 45 years. And we have two wonderful boys. And we got 5 grandchildren. But if she didn't come, as much as I said I did this or I wanted to do that, I would never been able to do it because there's no way I would have. Because I was too traumatized in order to try again. But because of her, she said, "Oh, it won't be that bad." And then she helped with the banking, finding of the house, and so forth. So, even concept of hockey sometimes. But if it wasn't for my wife Sandra, we wouldn't have this conversation.
Well, so you're shouting with Sandra, and it sounds like a beautiful partnership. And again, Ted, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Wasn't that powerful? As you reflect on this conversation with Ted Nolan, You may already be noticing something stirring inside you, an idea, a memory, a quiet voice saying you already have enough to begin. Ted's wisdom, learn to win with what you got, isn't just advice. It's an invitation to stop waiting, to stop comparing, and to start leading from exactly where you are. He reminded us that greatness doesn't always come from having more, but from doing more with what's already in reach. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the most transformative. When you focus on people, not just performance, everything changes. Your roots, your challenges, your stories, they're not obstacles, they're fuel. There's power in trusting what you already know, even if it doesn't look standard. When you share your wisdom, however simple, you never know who it might impact. And maybe, just maybe, you're already thinking about how to apply this. So here's your gentle challenge. Pause for a moment. Write down one thing you already have that could help you win today. A strength, a lesson, a perspective. And if it feels right, jot it down on a napkin and share it using the hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom. Because it's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's realizing the perfect moment might begin with a single decision: to lead, to act, to win with what you've already got. Thank you again to Ted Nolan for showing us what that looks like. And thank you for listening, sharing, and stepping into your own wisdom. Until next time, I'm Govind Jayaraman, reminding you that the napkin in front of you might just hold the next big idea that changes everything. Make it a great day.
The way we work is changing every day, thanks in large part to the internet. So if you're an online creator, what can you do to create a sustainable future for yourself? On Attach Your Resume, creators share how their jobs work, especially during times like these where big changes are happening in the online world. Listen to interviews with internet reporter Taylor Lorenz, CEO of Patreon Jack Conte, representatives from Defector, Aftermath, and more. Whether you're an online creator yourself or curious about what's going on in the online Wild West, search Attach Your Resume wherever you listen to your podcasts.